In this video, I'll talk about the cardiovascular system and how it works along with the structure and functions of the blood and the blood vessels. The key functions of the cardiovascular system are the transportation of oxygen, nutrient delivery, waste product removal, blood clotting, thermoregulation, and protection from infection. The transportation of oxygen is when the exercise is being performed and the muscle needs oxygen to perform the required task. The cardiovascular system carries the oxygen in the blood to the muscles. Nutrient delivery is the same process, but with nutrients like glucose that aid the exercise due to being the body's main fuel source. Waste product removal is the removal of CO2 from the body, from the blood to the lungs to exhale, urgently moving this out of the body to inhale and reoxygenate the blood to continue exercise. Blood clotting stops bleeding in the body when platelets form at a cut to stop bleeding. This would help an athlete in a game like football, where if the player gets injured and cut, the clot would stop them from bleeding too much and therefore losing too much blood. Thermoregulation is carried out by the body's blood vessels swelling and loses heat through the blood being closer to the skin and losing the heat to the air. The cardiovascular system contains two circulations, the pulmonary and the systemic. The pulmonary circuit is the part of the cardiovascular system that takes the deoxygenated blood from the heart to the lungs and returns the blood to the heart, where it's reoxygenated. From the right atrium, the blood is pumped through the tricuspid valve into the right ventricle. The blood is then pumped from the right ventricle through the pulmonary valve and into the pulmonary artery. From this, the blood is then pumped into the left and right pulmonary arteries, one for each lung, and travels through into the lungs. The pulmonary arteries carry deoxygenated blood to the lungs, where the carbon dioxide is released and oxygen is picked up during respiration. Arteries are further divided into very fine capillaries, where gaseous exchange can take place. Once this has happened, the pulmonary veins return oxygenated blood to the left atrium of the heart. The second of the two circulations is the systemic circuit, which is the heart and the muscles. The systemic circuit is the part of the cardiovascular system that takes oxygenated blood from the heart to the body and returns that blood deoxygenated. Oxygenated blood from the lungs leaves the pulmonary circulation when it enters the left atrium through the pulmonary veins. The blood is then pumped through the bicuspid valve into the left ventricle. From the left ventricle, blood is pumped through the aortic valve and into the aorta. The aorta branches into major arteries, then branching further into arteries which supply the lower parts of the body. The arteries branch into smaller arteries, arterioles, and finally capillaries. Waste and carbon dioxide diffuse out of the cell into the blood, while oxygen in the blood diffuses out of the blood into the cell. The deoxygenated blood continues through the capillaries, which merge into venules, then veins, and then finally the vena cava, which drains the blood into the right atrium of the heart, thus completing the systemic circuit. The dual pump of the two circulations, the three layers of the heart, and the four chambers of the heart complete the heart's anatomy. The heart is a dual pump for its two circulations, the systemic and the pulmonary circuits, as described before. The three layers of the heart are the pericardium, the myocardium, and the endocardium. The pericardium is the outer layer of the fibrous tissue, the myocardium is the middle layer of and the endocardium is the inner layer of the epithelial cells. Four main chambers of the heart, the right and left atria, and the right and left ventricles. The blood fills the atria and the pressure opens the bicuspid and tricuspid valves here. The chordae tendineae pull on the valves, then allow the last of the blood into the ventricles as the papillary muscles tug on the cords, making them open the valve. The valves shut behind the blood and the ventricles contracting during ventricular systole. The blood is forced through the aortic and pulmonary valves and out. The cardiac cycle is the process of the contraction of the heart from electrical impulses sent by nodes in the heart. The heart is relaxed as the node sends an impulse, and the first stage of contraction is started when atrial systole takes place. The diastole is the filling stage, so the blood from the atria fill the ventricles during atrial diastole and atrial systole. The contraction of the atria transports the last 30% of the blood to the ventricles. Atrial diastole, systole, and ventricular diastole and systole are all in one impulse output. All of these four stages together are just one heartbeat. The nodes and fibers that help this to happen are the sinoatrial node, the atrioventricular node, the bundle of His, and the Purkinje fibers. The conduction system controls the cardiac cycle through the impulses sent by the sinoatrial node and the atrioventricular node. An electrical impulse travels from the sinoatrial node to the walls of the atria, causing them to contract, and this is through both atrial diastole and systole. The second stage is when the impulse reaches the atrioventricular node, which delays it by about a tenth of a second. The third stage is when the bundle branches carry the signal from the atrioventricular node to the heart apex. These two stages 2 and 3 are ventricular diastole. The fourth stage, which is ventricular systole, is where the signal spreads through the ventricle walls, causing them to contract. The autonomic nervous system influences the cardiac cycle when the impulse is sent down either the sympathetic or parasympathetic nerves. When an increase in the heart rate is needed for more oxygenated blood to go to the muscles, an impulse is sent down the sympathetic nerve, which is also known as the accelerator nerve, to the adrenal glands, which releases epinephrine or adrenaline, targeted at the SA node, which accelerates the frequency at which the impulses are then sent, therefore speeding up the heart rate. When the demand change requires a lower heart rate, the impulse is sent down a parasympathetic nerve, also known as a vagus nerve, and this slows the heart rate. Within this system and the blood, there is the erythrocytes, the leukocytes, the platelets, and the plasma. The erythrocytes, or the red blood cells, carry nutrients, O2 and CO2 around the body. The leukocytes, or the white blood cells, fight against infection by creating antibodies that kill an infection or foreign body in the body. This is one function of the cardiovascular system that I forgot originally. The platelets clot the blood when a cut begins to bleed and stops excessive blood loss. The plasma has the most crucial role of all to carry all the other components of the blood through the body, as it is mostly water. The structure and function of the blood vessels also changes. So through the structure of the arteries, there is a thick tunica externa, a thick tunica media, and the function for this is the contraction, the recoil, and the stretching. There is an endothelium layer of 4 mm diameter for carrying a lot of blood, a low surface area because it's for just simple blood flow, a high resistance because it is under high pressure, and it's controlled by the autonomic nervous system for vasodilation and vasoconstriction. The arteries also carry oxygenated blood. In the arterioles, the tunica media is used for contraction. The tunica intima is also there, or the endothelium. The precapillary sphincters and the higher surface area than the arteries are used for the controlling of the blood distribution. They're also controlled by the autonomic nervous system for vasoconstriction, and there is only a 30 micrometer diameter because there is less blood through than the arteries. They also carry oxygenated blood. The capillaries have the tunica intima, the 1 cell thick wall with gaps, the highest surface area, and an 8 micrometer diameter, all to diffuse chemicals and nutrients into the muscles. The venules have the tunica externa, tunica intima, or the endothelium, have a 20 micrometer diameter as little blood is carried, and similar surface area to the arterioles to carry the blood from the capillaries to the veins. In the veins there is a thin tunica externa, a thin tunica media, and a tunica intima. For there is because the veins all have a low blood pressure that they have to carry, or low pressure blood. It has the largest lumen and the smallest surface area because they have a concentrated blood flow into one certain area, and there is pocket valves to work against gravity so nothing can roll backwards into the veins again.